Have you ever looked at an old photograph, a picture taken long ago, and wondered what secrets are hidden behind those smiles and eyes? We always believe the past is a closed book, its stories told and buried. But sometimes, a door creaks open, and the past can reach out and touch you, not gently, but with a cold electric shock. Welcome to Family Secrets Unveiled, where we explore the most authentic stories, the most haunting family mysteries, the truths that even time cannot erase. And today, the story I'm about to tell you will make you rethink everything you ever believed. This story begins simply, incredibly ordinarily, with a woman named Elara Vance. Elara is a 38-year-old graphic artist living in a Boston suburb. She leads a quiet life, or in her words, a comfortably boring one. She has a loving husband, Marcus, a tech engineer, and 2 children, a 6-year-old girl and a 4-year-old boy. Their life is the picture of the stability and happiness one dreams of. Everything was in its right place until one day, a seemingly harmless event tore that veil apart. It was a rainy Saturday afternoon, and Elara was browsing social media. She rarely posted, but loved to follow pages from museums and historical organizations. She had been following a small website for local history enthusiasts, and a new post appeared on her timeline, Unanticipated Moments from 1925. The post featured a series of black and white photos from a tea party in Boston. It was a collection of candid, everyday moments from almost a century ago. Elara scrolled through them with mild curiosity, enjoying the outdated dresses and hairstyles, until she stopped. Her heart began to beat faster, a cold sensation running down her spine, not because of the photo, but because of a tag. The picture showed a young woman smiling brightly, holding a teacup, and on the photo, someone had shockingly tagged it with her name, Elara Vance. The tag was attached to that face, the unmistakable face of a young woman in the 1920s. It wasn't a common name like Jane Smith or Mary Jones. It was Elara Vance. A unique name. She wondered if it was just a digital prank, a silly facial recognition algorithm error. But she looked closer, zooming in on the photo. The woman in the picture had a small, almost imperceptible scar on her left eyebrow, the very same scar Elara had from a childhood fall. She had the exact same green eyes, the exact same face shape. It was an uncanny, unbelievable resemblance. Like looking at a ghostly version of herself from a distant past. Elara called Marcus, her voice trembling. Marcus looked at the photo, then at her, his expression shifting from skepticism to astonishment. He tried to rationalize it. "It must be a coincidence, honey," he said, but his voice wasn't convincing. There could be another woman named Elara Vance. The scar could be an illusion. But they both knew it wasn't a coincidence. They both felt a cold current of disbelief. However, things got truly strange when Elara received an email from the historical website's administrator. She had messaged them to ask about the tag, thinking it was a mistake. But the administrator, an elderly woman named Agnes, replied, "I can't believe it. This photo has been in our collection for decades. That tag has been attached for a very long time. But we didn't do it. It's part of the metadata embedded in the original file. That was impossible." Metadata with Elara's name and face, a woman born almost 60 years later, embedded in a photo from 1925? The sense of an uncanny double began to weigh on her. Elara started to wonder if she was dreaming. Marcus tried to reassure her. "Just forget about it, honey. Maybe someone was playing a prank. Just an interesting story to tell the kids." But Elara couldn't forget. She couldn't stop looking at that photo. She zoomed in, looking deep into the eyes of that woman. There was a fleeting sadness in those eyes, a sadness Elara found strangely familiar, like an echo from another life. Then, something even more unsettling happened. One evening, as she was cleaning out her grandmother's old bookshelf, she found an old diary. Her grandmother, Dorothy, had passed away years ago, and Elara had never had the time to go through her things. She opened the diary, and on the very first page, an old, faded handwriting made her blood run cold. "I must tell Elara. I must tell her the truth before it's too late. About the name, about the curse, about what happened to Clara." Elara didn't know who Clara was. She had never heard her grandmother mention that name. And a curse? These words resonated like a death knell in her mind. The scar on her eyebrow, the tagged name in the old photo, and now these mysterious words in her grandmother's diary. All these seemingly unrelated pieces, Elara had a feeling, were beginning to form a terrifying picture, a picture that was no longer a random coincidence, but something that had been intentionally set in motion. A secret buried for too long that was now beginning to come back to life. The words in her grandmother Dorothy's old diary haunted Elara. I must tell Elara about the name, about the curse, about what happened to Clara. The name Clara lingered in her mind, a strange echo from a past she didn't know. She tried to find more information about the name, about the curse, but the diary only contained scattered fragments, disjointed, illegible sentences, as if written in a state of panic. Marcus tried to convince her to let it go, saying they were just the ramblings of an old woman. But Elara couldn't. Her instinct, a deep, cold feeling, told her these things were real, and she was in the middle of it. And then, things got more serious. One evening, while searching for old family documents, she found another old photo, a family portrait. It was a picture of her great-grandmother, Genevieve. But what was astonishing was that next to Genevieve was a young woman with fiery red hair and a face very similar to the woman in the 1925 photo tagged with Elara's name. Below the photo, a tiny, almost unreadable handwritten note, Clara, 1925. Clara was the name of that woman. Elara had found the first piece of the puzzle. Who is she? Why did her grandmother write about her so mysteriously? Elara started to dig deeper into her family history, rummaging through old paper boxes, correspondence, and old documents. She found an old letter written by Genevieve to a sister, describing a terrible tragedy involving poor Clara. The letter only said that Clara mysteriously vanished and something terrible happened. No other details, just fear and despair hidden between the lines. Meanwhile, Elara began to feel watched. She started noticing small things, fleeting glances from strange cars parked outside her house, missed calls from unknown numbers, and strange noises from the basement late at night. She told Marcus, but he dismissed them as her being overly stressed. Honey, you're obsessed with this, he said. We'll call a doctor. You need a break. But Elara knew it wasn't paranoia. An inexplicable, cold feeling had crept into her life. A ghost from the past was clinging to her. One evening, while browsing an online forum about Boston history, she found an old post about a mysterious disappearance in 1925. A young woman named Elara Vance, described as looking exactly like Elara, had vanished without a trace after a tea party. The case was never solved. The post ended with a haunting story about rumors that the girl was under a curse of an ancient family, a forgotten curse that still existed. Elara looked at the name of the missing girl, the name of the girl in the old photo, and her own name. Elara Vance. Elara Vance. The same last name, the same face, and a similar mysterious story. Too big a coincidence to be random. She found an old book in the local library, a book on Boston family history, and found a page written about the Vance family. The book described them as wealthy and powerful, but also with a tragic event that led to the family's decline. The book was not specific, only giving hints about a dark secret. Elara decided she had to find answers. She contacted the woman named Agnes from the historical website, who had emailed her before. Agnes agreed to meet her. Agnes was an old woman, living alone in an old house, filled with books and documents. When Elara told her the whole story, from the tagged photo to her grandmother's diary and the family history book, Agnes listened intently, without a hint of skepticism. When Elara finished, Agnes handed her an old wooden box. I knew this would happen, Agnes said, her voice trembling. Your grandmother, Dorothy Vance, was my close friend. She came to see me a few weeks before she passed away and gave me this box. She said I had to keep it for you and only give it to you when you found the evidence yourself. Elara opened the box. Inside was a letter and an old silver necklace. The letter was handwritten by her grandmother. My dear Elara, if you are reading this letter, It means you have discovered the truth. I have tried to protect you from it my whole life, but this curse cannot be hidden forever. Clara is not a stranger. She is my twin sister. She was taken by people I cannot name, those who hunt our name and our souls. You also have the same scar on your eyebrow. It is not a normal scar. It is a mark that we all carry. Be careful, my dear. They found Clara. And now, they will find you. Fear welled up in Elara. She was not just a woman living a normal life. She was part of a tragic story, a story that began long before she was born. And now, the ghosts of the past were rising to reclaim what was lost. The silver necklace glowed mysteriously in her palm. It wasn't just a piece of jewelry. It was a key, a promise, a protective amulet. But would it be strong enough to protect her from what was about to happen? Dorothy's letter had revealed a horrifying secret. Clara was not a stranger. She was her grandmother's twin sister. And the scar on Elara's eyebrow was not a childhood accident, but a mark, a sign. The words in the letter made Elara's fear tangible and cold. She was no longer in a mystery story. She had become the protagonist in a nightmare that had started decades ago. Marcus panicked when she told him everything. "We have to go to the police," he said, his voice trembling. "This is not a joke, this is a threat." But Elara shook her head. "They won't believe us. A story about a curse and hunters? They'll think I'm crazy." She knew she had to handle this herself. The silver necklace her grandmother had left her seemed to be the only clue she had. It had the shape of an intricately crafted six-pointed star with a small turquoise stone in the middle. It was unlike anything she had ever seen. Elara's relationship with Marcus began to strain. Marcus no longer believed her story. Instead, he suspected she was having psychological problems. He worried for Elara, for the children, and for himself. The suspicion created an invisible distance between them. "I don't recognize you anymore," Marcus said with a sad voice. "You are risking our safety for a crazy story." This isolation made Elara feel more alone and helpless than ever. She had lost her only companion in this nightmare. The nightmare became a reality when one evening, she received a call from an unknown number. The voice on the other end was an older man, his voice hoarse and cold. "You are Elara Vance," he said, not as a question but as a statement. "We have found you. The curse must be fulfilled." Elara hung up immediately, her heart pounding like a drum. She looked out the window, and in the dim light of the street lamp, she saw a man in a black coat, staring at her house. The police were called, but when they arrived, the man had disappeared. They checked around, found nothing, and concluded it was just Elara's paranoia. Everyone thought she was losing her mind. Everyone except one person. It was an old neighbor, Mr. Peterson, a man who lived a solitary life, rarely socializing. One night, when Elara was taking out the trash, he called her over. "They won't stop," he said calmly. "I've seen them many times. They found you. You have to run. They won't spare you or your family." Elara was terrified. Who were they? And why did he know? He looked at the necklace around her neck. "That is an amulet," he said. "But it's not enough. That night, when your grandmother's twin sister disappeared, that wasn't a story. That was a fact. The whole Vance family knew, but they hid it." The climax of the story came when Elara found an old map hidden in Mr. Peterson's book. It was a detailed map of Boston from the 1920s, but with a strange symbol marked on an old building in the city center. This map was not just a map. It was a clue. It pointed to a place where all secrets were kept. The place where Clara was taken. Elara decided she had to go there alone. She left a letter for Marcus, a tear-filled letter, saying she loved him and the children, but she had to do this. She went to the old building marked on the map. It was an abandoned warehouse, a dark and desolate place. She found a secret door leading down to a basement, and when she stepped inside, she felt a cold, heavy air, as if the atmosphere there had been trapped for a century. In the basement, Elara found a secret room. Inside, there was a small altar, a dilapidated bed, and a large photo of Clara, the woman from the 1925 photo, hanging on the wall. She saw an old book, a book about strange rituals and a curse of the twin soul. This book explained everything. The curse was passed down from generation to generation, and one of the twins would have to be sacrificed for the family's prosperity. Clara was the victim of that curse. But the most horrifying thing was a specially marked page in the book. It was an old parchment, a copy of a prophecy. The stolen soul shall return in the next century, and with her return, the other soul shall also return to seek revenge. Elara was not the only victim. She was one half of a divided soul, a stolen soul. And she had not come here to find the truth. She had come here to face a person she did not know. When she turned around, a man stood in the shadows. It was not Marcus. It was Mr. Peterson. He was not a kind neighbor. He was the one who had been watching her all along. He was the one who had left the clues. And he was the one who would decide her fate, a fate that had been sealed 100 years ago. The truth was revealed in a cruel and painful way. Mr. Peterson was not a kind neighbor. He was part of the story, one of the hunters, and the one who had led Elara here. He was not a secondary character. He was the culprit, the one who had monitored everything from the shadows. Elara looked at him, a mix of horror and betrayal welling up inside her. "Why?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Who are you?" He smiled sadly. "I have no name. Just an heir. A guardian of the curse." He explained that the Vance family had been blessed with prosperity and power, but the price was the sacrifice of a twin in each generation. And Clara, Dorothy's twin sister, was the next victim. But Clara was not a weak woman. She had found a ritual, a way to transfer her soul into a protective amulet, to wait for her return. "And you," he said, pointing at Elara, "you are Clara's soul. Her soul was reborn into this body in a different time. And I must take you back, to fulfill the curse and return the soul to where it belongs." Marcus appeared unexpectedly. He had followed Elara here. He had heard their voices from outside. He walked in, his face full of rage. "Stay away from her," he roared. Marcus no longer had any doubts. He had seen the truth with his own eyes. Mr. Peterson smiled contemptuously. "You cannot stop fate," he said. A fight broke out. Marcus, although not a strong man, fought with all his might to protect Elara. But Mr. Peterson was stronger. An unexplainable power seemed to envelop him. As Mr. Peterson was about to strike Marcus down, something unexpected happened. Elara clutched the silver necklace her grandmother had left her. The light from the turquoise stone became brilliant, illuminating the entire room. Elara felt a strange power rise within her, a chillingly familiar sensation. It wasn't her own power, but the power of another soul. She looked into the old, broken mirror on the wall, and in the reflection, she saw another face. Clara's face. Not the twin soul, but the sacrificial soul, Clara said through Elara's mouth, her voice full of hatred. "He doesn't need my soul. He needs the sacrifice. And now I have returned. I will not die alone." Elara knew what was happening. She realized she wasn't Clara. She was a reborn version of Clara, a soul that had been sacrificed. And now that very soul had returned, not to seek revenge, but to fulfill the curse. Clara did not want to die alone. She wanted to take Elara with her. Clara's soul had survived inside the necklace, waiting for an identical body to return to. And Elara was that person. The climax of the story came when Clara, inside Elara, tried to use her power to kill Mr. Peterson. A battle between two souls took place. One side was Clara, wanting revenge, and the other was Elara, wanting to live. Marcus took advantage of the opportunity, using a heavy object to strike Mr. Peterson on the head. He fell. Elara collapsed, her soul almost torn apart. When Elara woke up, she found herself in the hospital. Marcus was sitting by her bedside, his eyes filled with worry. Mr. Peterson had vanished without a trace. The police didn't believe a word they said. The secret room was abandoned, with no signs of any magical rituals. Everything seemed to have returned to normal. But Elara's life would never be the same. The secret had been exposed. The pain had been discovered. She had survived. She had won. But she knew that her victory wasn't complete. She had kept a part of Clara, a part of the stolen soul, inside her. Her life would go on, but she would always live with a haunting from the past, a story that was buried and now had become a part of her. And so, the story of Elara Vance has come to an end. A story of family secrets, forgotten curses, and a battle between the past and the present. It reminds us that the past is not always a distant place. Sometimes, it's just an old photo, a forgotten diary, or an old necklace, waiting to unlock a story that never truly ends. This story will live on in my mind, and I hope it will live on in yours too. If you feel haunted by this story, please press the like button to support us, subscribe to the Family Secrets Unveiled channel so you don't miss the next terrifying stories, and don't forget to turn on notifications to be notified as soon as a new video is released. Thank you for watching.